In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. O God, awesome is your name. Great is your power. You who are the giver of gifts and talents to be used for your glory and to enhance the lives of our brothers and sisters, we praise you. Thank you for waking us up this morning and for the opportunity to be present here and participate in this workshop on cyberbullying and social etiquette. We thank you for our facilitator, Mr. Darren Dory. We ask that you bless him, speak through him, and inspire him to teach and guide us according to your plan. We thank you for the staff of the Franciscan Institute who organized so well to make this workshop effective and meaningful to us. Bless them to continue to do great works for your kingdom. Open our eyes, our ears, our minds, and our hearts to listen attentively during this workshop and to develop deeper understanding and the desire to integrate what we will learn into our lives. Give us the courage to use the internet and social media platforms for developing ourselves positively and for uplifting others. Help us to communicate with greater social etiquette and reverence for your people. We pray through the intercessions of Blessed Carlo Acutis that we may use social media effectively and to be evangelizers of the good news. We make this prayer through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Please respond, pray for us. Blessed Carlo Acutis. Blessed Carlo Acutis. Blessed Carlo Acutis. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Mr. Darren Dory is the webmaster at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus, and has held that role since 2004. Mr. Dory also wears the hat of digital anthropologist at Cyberspace Safe Trinidad and Tobago, an organization that offers services on adapting to the digital divide. These services include voluntary informational sessions to schools and nonprofits on topics such as cyberbullying, internet addiction, and social media etiquette, as well as professional consulting services to businesses on digital transformation. Let us give Mr. Dory a lusty St. Rose welcome.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. And I hope that you are ready for our presentation this morning. And I do hope that it will be meaningful and not meaningless. I know that was a slip of the tongue. Fear not. Yesterday, we had a really fantastic session with the lower school. They were quite engaging. So they have put the bar up for you older students to be as engaging and ask the questions. Pretty much what we would do is run through our presentations, and you can put your questions in the chat, and we would look to address those questions after the presentation. So I'm going to begin by sharing my screen. Right, so I think we can all see the screen here. So let's proceed. So today I'm here to share with you some cyber safety tips for you, the virtual student. We're going to focus on cyberbullying and social media. And I know quite a few of you in the audience here are probably experts on various social media platforms. So I'm not about to tell you the basics, but I want to open your eyes to a few things. I want to make you become a bit aware of the tools that you have at your disposals right there in your pockets and in the palm of your hands, and understand the power that you have in those devices and in those applications. And really and truly, maybe probably even change your mindset on your approach to utilizing these applications. And that brings us actually to the very first slide, which is essentially the mindset divide when it comes to utilizing, your phone, your tablet, your laptop, but basically utilizing the internet. And to understand that you can really divide that use into personal and professional time. Each one of us would probably have different types of apps that we use to satisfy different needs. So, sometimes we may, spend time just having fun. We just want to, just be distracted or, connect with some friends or family members. But then on the other hand, we may actually want to use those social media apps to, be a little productive, maybe do some research for our assignments, get some, inspiration from quotes and so on. So you can actually utilize, social networks for different reasons. And one student yesterday asked, what if I don't engage in social media platform? And I want to believe that the question came out of maybe a little bit of misunderstanding and quite possibly even a little bit of fear. And I get the question from adults as well. They say, I'm not going to go on social media because all my business is going to come out to the rest of the world. And that's not necessarily the case, because you only put out the information that you want people to see, and that's all that they're going to know about you. But in your stage in life, I want you to understand that you can actually utilize the social media platforms, to do two core things: either spend time or invest time. And as you can see here, most of us probably lean towards the spending time aspect of it, where we are utilizing the applications to play games, socialize, interact with our friends and so on. And whilst we probably might be using it to invest time, that may have probably very well changed over the last few months with the onset of COVID and, maybe some lockdown restrictions in different schools and different areas, where you really had no choice but to now invest your time in education and do so online. So I think, maybe COVID might have shown or proven this slide to be more true than before, where you can actually utilize these platforms to both spend time, some of us might say waste time, and also invest time, where, you have some sort of purpose and you have an end goal. You want to improve your academic prowess. And pretty much what you're saying here, this actually takes you all the way past school and into the workplace as well. So at the end of the day, I want you to understand that, you do have a very powerful tool with those apps, whether it's, labeled as a social media app. You can actually utilize them for a lot of good. In Trinidad and Tobago in particular, I would have seen over the last few months, a lot of folks who are on social media before to spend time have been utilizing social media to generate some sort of income. So they may have converted their Instagram profile, their TikTok profile, Facebook profile to more of a business perspective. And with that, they were able to sell products. A lot of folks, are good at baking and cooking and so on. And with, certain businesses having to close their doors because of COVID, they utilize the platform. So this actually applied not to seasoned businesses and adults, but I saw a lot of older teenagers and folks just like yourself jump on that bandwagon as well. And they started to offer services and, generate some income for themselves. So the world is really at your disposal. You have these really fantastic tools to, to make the best use of. And you can essentially be able to either build your career, increase your academic prowess, or even lastly, just as we probably very well accustomed to, connecting with your friends and so on the internet. So one of the things that I want us to be aware of is that once we get onto the social media platforms and the internet apps, and we are looking at spending our time and investing our time, the one thing that's gonna help us or make us or keep us successful is that of your personal brand and what people really believe that you are on the internet. So your personal brand is also something that defines you on the internet. It's also sometimes referred to as your digital footprint. It's also referred to as your living resume. And it really defines you. It really defines you for what you are on the internet. And your personal brand is extremely important. Particularly in this stage in your life, you would have maybe aspirations of getting onto university. And what you would notice is that, in applying to some of those universities, you may end up with, those admission officers looking at your profile on the internet. So, you might want to take an opportunity. You might want to take an opportunity to Google yourself and see what comes up. It's really interesting to know that, a lot of the information that you put out there is actually stored and, creates your digital footprint. And what information is that really? Well, it's pretty much everything, every type of interaction that you have with a website or with an application. So for example, every post, every share, every comment, it's all recorded back to you, and these are the things that define you on the internet. These are the things that help build your online resume, right? And these are the things that either fortunately or unfortunately would show up as a result of, someone doing a Google search on your name. So it's really important for you to own your digital footprint. And that's really, I think that's something that you would want to understand going forward. You would need to own your digital footprint, because if you don't own your digital footprint, there are some nefarious folks out there, and they may, create a social media account under your name, which in essence is a fake profile. And they will then have that control over what is seen about you on the internet. That's a form of cyberbullying, right? That's a form of cyberbullying, and that would actually, could probably cause some sort of stress for you going forward. So what I would recommend is that, you own your digital footprint, you own your accounts on different social media platforms. Now, one way in which you can actually do that is by creating accounts on all of the different platforms. And that's the thing. I think that we may want to, ensure that you have accounts on all the different platforms. So, for example, we can look at creating accounts on Instagram and Facebook and so on, owning it and saving it under your account, and understanding that you don't necessarily need to interact in those accounts, right? So owning a digital footprint is quite important. Another thing that I want you to be aware of, though, is whilst we may be engaging in all of these activities, you may end up with, probably spending a little too much time on the internet. And I'm not too sure if any of you here might feel that you are addicted to the internet, but, it's definitely something that, we could have a look at in the next few slides. So let's look at this one in particular, where I did a little bit of math, and you could actually see that you might be spending a bit too much time, in playing some of these very popular games. So I'm here to show you that you can actually lose 1 month in a fortnight, and that's where the pun is, of course. So let's just, take for example that, we are spending about 2 hours each day, in some sort of mindless activity, right? We're spending time, we're not investing time. So just about 2 hours each day, that's roughly about 28 hours in a fortnight. And you see the pun there, which we can say is just about 1 day. That gives us about 2 days every month and nearly 24 days each year, which is just about a month in total. So there you have it. In 1 month, you would have lost a fortnight. Now, here's the thing. You would have lost time. Here's the thing. 2 hours a day playing games might seem a lot, but I know that there are many other individuals who probably spent a far bit more amount of time in engaging in these online platforms. So that's a challenge that we have to work with and deal with. And it's, actually quite distracting because the same devices that we are using to learn is the same devices that we've been using to play. So, we have to be extremely cautious about how much time that we actually spend on the internet. And if you're still not entirely sure whether or not you are spending a little too much time and whether you may have internet addiction, we may probably need to look at, whether or not in a particular routine, do you get a regular amount of sleep? What's your average number of hours of sleep? It should be around 6 to 8 hours. And what about no screen distractions after a certain time? The thing is, if you keep on looking at that screen for an extended amount of time, it will have physical effects on you. And these effects can actually be quite long-standing in the sense that, you may feel tired. If you have dry eyes, you get, headaches a lot. You feel a little irritated. It's all, some sort of effect of, a little too much internet or a little too much of that screen. Now, here's an interesting tip. Let's go back to that last slide. Now, this picture probably looks a little familiar to you, lying in bed with no lights on, and the only light that's coming out is that which is emanating from the screen. That's actually not entirely a good thing because your body, your circadian rhythm at that time of the night is telling your body, hey, it's time for me to wind down and, go to sleep. But when you bring that screen, that phone, which has a light, and it's often referred to as a blue light, when you bring that phone in front of your face, you sort of tell your brain, hey, maybe it's getting bright and it's time for me to wake up instead of, it's time to go to sleep. So you're disturbing that circadian rhythm, and it's going to be extremely difficult for you to fall asleep, when that time comes. So a little trick that I like to tell people to try, on your phones, you would probably have a flashlight or a flash for the camera, which often doubles up as a flashlight to the back of the phone. So tonight, if you're utilizing this device and you're in your room and it's very dark, just try putting on your flashlight a little bit, and you will actually feel your eyes relax a bit when looking at the screen. And that may help you a little bit in terms of, getting able to fall back to sleep in a faster time. But ideally, you really shouldn't be utilizing the devices in an extremely dark room, because that is what actually leads to things like dry eyes and, feeling tired because you're unable to sleep. So these are distractions that, we could probably try and avoid when we're on the device alone. But if we are doing remote learning, there are also quite a lot of distractions that we have to deal with as well. And this is because, we probably utilizing the same device or set of devices when we are in online school. So right here on this screen, we have a few quick tips, to help you avoid the distraction, for want of a better word, but, just transition into that learning environment a little bit more seamlessly. So things like turning off notifications, you could actually use a feature on some phones called Do Not Disturb, which, it keeps the notifications on, but it wouldn't show them to you during particular hours. So whilst you might want to keep the notifications on during regular class time, because I do know that some of you might be using WhatsApp to communicate with your classmates and so on during school, You can actually enable do not disturb when you have an exam, because you don't want to have those notifications popping up during an online exam. That could be quite distracting, and really and truly you should be focusing on your exam at that point in time. I always recommend to use the headphones because it eliminates noise for you and also for the folks listening in. If you have a, like an open mic, which is just the mic on the laptop, it's going to be a bit distracting as well. If possible, and I know this is, not that easy for many students, but if possible, try and recreate an environment that looks like, your school desk when you're doing your online learning at home. So a clean and an organized workspace. Because it gets you in preparation for that sort of learning. And I sincerely don't recommend, sitting in your bedroom, during the day with your phone, to do your online learning. It's not conducive for it. Your brain is accustomed to thinking that when I'm in this room, in my bedroom, it's to sleep and rest. It's not to be active and creative. That's just another recommendation as well. And most definitely, hopefully your schedule will allow it during the day. Take some breaks, get up, take a walk, look outside, just rest your eyes a bit if possible at all. All of these, would help to keep your mind fresh and to keep your eyes, focused when you have to get back down to the screen. So, I mean, it's definitely a double-edged sword. There are so many positive and negative effects of, us being on the internet, whether it is strictly for academic purposes, even just for, just having fun and being on social media. The problem is, when the negative effects start to outweigh the positive effects, and that happens when, we sort of forget that we're on the internet because we're online so often that, you're on your phone, you're on a device, but you're not really thinking that you're doing something different than your regular activities. So, you become numb to what the rules should be, and you may engage in certain activities that you shouldn't engage in, right? Sometimes if we are not engaging in social media, you may have that sense of inadequacy or just a little anxiety or depression because you want to get back online, or you have that fear of missing out. That's what FOMO stands for. FOMO, that fear of missing out, is that, you want to be there, you want to know exactly everything that someone's posting up. But the one that I want to focus on today is that of cyberbullying, because sometimes we're on the internet and we may make a comment, we may say something, and often enough, you might not necessarily realize that it is a cyberbullying act that you are engaging in. Because sometimes it might be a joke, it might seem to be a joke, but when in truth and in fact, it's not, because the person on the receiving end, takes it a little bit more seriously than, maybe what might have happened in the classroom. You see, in the classroom, and this slide is very important, and I want you to pay particular attention to it. In the classroom, we are limited to just, hopefully, just, the folks in the classroom, or at most one or two classes, where someone might tell somebody something, and, just the network of friends right there, it mightn't be more than 50 friends in total that might know what went on, and they may be, whispering or gossiping about what went on. And, sometimes you realize you made a mistake, or the person realized they made a mistake, and they come to apologize. And, before the end of the day and school's out, everyone forgot, about that particular incident. And, we're all good. The person goes back home, or you go back home, and you completely forget about it. The next day at school is a brand new day, and no one is going to remind you of that event, right? So that's a possibility when we look at, traditional bullying in that regard. But you see, cyberbullying is different. Cyberbullying, of course, and just to define the term, is some sort of act that causes, emotional stress or distraught to a person by the use of some sort of computer device connected to the internet. So it means, going on the internet and actually making a post, about someone, telling them something bad about themselves. And the unfortunate thing about that particular act is, and we all know, what you post on the internet stays on the internet, right? Whether you delete it or not, someone is going to screenshot it, someone is going to save it. And it's going to come back to haunt you over and over. So the thing is, someone can actually post, a hurtful thing about you on the internet. They can do so anonymously, which makes it even a bit more difficult to track and remove. There is no physical location as to where it happens, right? So it doesn't need to happen at home or at school. And there is no time limit to when this could take place. Worse yet, there is no time limit for you to get away from it. It's there, it's always in your face. And that's the problem. I think that's the biggest problem with cyberbullying, other than the actual act itself, the fact that it doesn't go away. And because it doesn't go away, you have the victim being visible to all of that, online hate on a regular basis, so much so that they can't get it out of their minds. And I have seen, and I'm actually going to show you a couple slides later on, what the repercussions of that could be. And some of it can actually be, quite harmful. So in case you were wondering whether or not, one, you may have engaged in some sort of cyberbullying event, or you saw someone post something and you're not entirely sure if it was cyberbullying, this next slide would give you a pretty good idea, on what a cyberbullying act is. So there is the cybercrime bill in Trinidad and Tobago. And in the cybercrime bill, it defines a cyberbully. Now, this definition could apply anywhere. It's not limited to Trinidad and Tobago alone. But I want to read it out for you today because it gives you an idea as to how broad that particular term is. So here it goes. A cyberbully is someone who uses a computer system repeatedly or continuously to convey information which causes fear, intimidation, distress, or harm to another person, or detriment to another person's health, emotional well-being, self-esteem, or reputation. So yes, that's a mouthful. But basically what it's saying there is that so many different acts that we may execute on the internet can fall under that of cyberbullying. Things like spreading rumors, hate speech. I think that we have to be extremely cautious now about what we say, how we refer to individuals, because many things are being interpreted, whether it is indeed or not, as hate speech. And you have to be extremely cautious about some terms that you use on the internet. And you do recall that we mentioned your digital footprint earlier on. Remember, if you post up something on the internet that falls under this topic or concept of cyberbullying, then there is a high possibility that that's going to remain as part of your digital profile, your digital footprint. And that's not something that you want, right? You don't want, if a university admissions officer who is considering giving you a scholarship to come to their university, Googling your name and finding some, really atrocious stuff online that you might have said, and that could be the make or break deciding factor, not your, pristine academic records. At that point in time, that really wouldn't matter. Even how you conduct yourself offline, that could also, and I have a classic example, which I read about just last night. So even how you conduct yourself offline can also affect you if it's posted on the internet. So many times we feel that, while we're indoors or, off the internet, we can get away with a lot of things. But because of the internet, it allows other individuals to speak out against one or the other. So there's this popular comedian who has been from the Caribbean. Some of you may have heard of him, and his name is Major Hype. And last night or yesterday during the day, his wife went out on social media and she started to speak about abuse, physical abuse from the comedian. Now he still has to make a response to that. So there is nothing, legally binding to that statement. However, in the court of the internet, once statements like that are made, you are guilty until proven innocent. So understand that in the court of the internet, you are generally guilty until proven innocent. So whether or not the claims are true or false, he will feel the results of that because of now an extremely negative digital footprint. He has already begun to lose a lot of his fans, and people are not interested in what he has to say or his comedy anymore. So just like that, in the blink of an eye, literally, you can lose everything that you have because of what is posted about you on the internet. So we have to be extremely cautious. Even when we think that we are making a joke about someone, it could have long-reaching repercussions to that individual and yourself if it is proven to be not true. So here are some other examples of cyberbullying incidents that, you know, really went far left. In some instances, you know, it took the ultimate bit. It costed the person the ultimate price in terms of, you know, we're not just even talking about, you know, losing a scholarship. Some people actually committed suicide based on what was being said and continuously being said on them on the internet. I want to make reference though to one woman sentenced to 15 months in texting suicide case. So this is an interesting thing. This was a couple that, sorry, not a couple. I think they were just still seeing each other, and the guy in the relationship was a bit depressed, and he was using social media tools to chat with you know, someone that he befriended on the internet. And the interesting thing is, you know, he was saying, you know, I'm feeling so depressed, I feel like that I might kill myself. And her response, continue and time again, was, well, if you're feeling to kill yourself, go ahead and do so. And that was the genesis of her responses to him. So much so that she ended up convincing him that, hey, maybe he's right, maybe he needs to end his life. And unfortunately, he did so. She was then charged with you know, involuntary manslaughter, and it was because of the technical the apps and so on that she was using. Quite possibly so. Maybe she felt that, you know, she would have gotten away with it because, you know, we were using the internet. You know, I wasn't face to face talking to this person and telling him what to do. So you have to be very cautious as well. You know, it's not your regular, on Facebook or Instagram and I send a message and I said something bad, and that could now be interpreted as cyberbullying. Using the technology has so many far-reaching implications that, you know, you have to be extremely cautious about how you use that very powerful device, you know, that's often in your pocket or in the palm of your hands. And as we're in the topic of, you know, that particular case with relationships, I want to speak to you today about digital relations, right? So a digital relationship, that's a very real and serious thing, particularly in teenagers' lives. And I think it's been amplified now, you know, due to the pandemic. So what exactly is a digital relationship? Well, it's a relationship where communication between two or more parties are conducted over, you know, technology platforms. Now, digital relationships can be professional, business, academic, or what I want to speak about today, romantic. So we can have digital romantic relationships where, you know, they actually start in the internet, they grow on the internet, and they end on the internet. And you know what? Sometimes you might even meet the person in real life. But when they end on the internet, that's where the problems could arise, because while you were in that digital romantic relationship with that person, you may have shared, you know, intimate stuff with that individual, whether it's text or pictures or videos or whatever it is, with the expectation that it will stay with that one individual. But we all know that that's never the case, right? Yeah, you know, this last slide here actually shows a woman suing a popular West Indies cricketer for sharing intimate photos of her. And those photos were shared while they were, you know, having a relationship, but then they subsequently broke up. And the cricketer decided, hey, I'm angry, I'm actually going to share these pictures. And he ended up in some hot water and had to end up paying, you know, over a few $100,000 well for, you know, for breaking that rule or that law of infringing on someone's privacy, right? So you have to be very mindful of what you do and what you say and how you use that information, you know, that is shared with you. I would say that, you know, nothing is secure or private once it's shared online. So if you post it up on the internet or share it with someone via WhatsApp, don't do so with the expectation, and that's the key word here. Don't do so with the expectation that that information is going to stay with that one person, right? Also, too many times we have seen pictures and videos of people that we don't know, that we know clearly they weren't meant for our eyes. So it's really going to put a damper on things for you going forward, especially if it remains on the internet and someone can actually search and find it under your digital footprint a few years down the road, right? And you know, you may wonder to yourself, well, why is it that somebody would do that in the first place? And you know, even if we have some parents listening, you may think to yourself, but my kid is, you know, they listen to me, they, you know, we brought them up in a really good household and so on. But peer pressure is a hell of a thing. And if you thought that peer pressure in the real world was difficult to deal with, well, online peer pressure is so much more difficult to deal with. Social peer pressure and just being able to be accepted by the in crowd is so much easier for someone to be a cyberbully or a bully on the internet and force someone, you know, use some sort of intimidation or scare tactics to make them do something that they really shouldn't do. You know, say like if you're not, you know, doing these things, then you know you're not going to be accepted into our group. And it's like I said, it's so much easier for that to be conducted on the internet. But I mean, I have to say, you as an individual, really and truly, you can't be afraid of being different and holding your ground. Others should be afraid of you being the same, you know, and you really don't want to fall into that trap of, you know, just, you know, groupthink and just doing what everyone says that they can. Because at the end of the day, you know, it really can define who you are as an individual. It will define your digital footprint. And you know, we would have mentioned that term so many times this morning, and you understand how important it is. So if you weren't aware, your digital footprint is that trace that you leave of yourself. And it's something that, you know, folks will see. So whether it is a university admissions officer or a future employer, you know, they may do a quick Google search to find out, hey, what is it about this person that I need to know that they're not telling me? And bet your bottom dollar, the internet will be that storyteller. So we're going to switch gears a little bit to look a little bit more on online safety as it pertains to, you know, your online learning, you know, activities that you might have. Now, this slide does look quite involved, but it's actually an excerpt of a printable version that I do have on my website. So you can visit cybersafeTT.com/10 top online safety tips. I'm going to focus on a few things here because I think at this stage, you know, in your lives, you have so much invested in that laptop of yours, that device of yours. Not just from a social and fun perspective, but from an academic perspective and a schoolwork perspective, and maybe even, you know, a business perspective, because I'm sure some of you here are already budding entrepreneurs. So I would like to bring some, you know, awareness to 3 different categories of safety that you need to be aware of when we're talking about online safety. You know, a misnomer about online safety is that, you know, I just need to be safe on the internet and, you know, set up my privacy settings and don't post bad things and so on, right? And yes, that's extremely important. But what about that laptop? What about that computer that you have at home? Are you protecting that? Suppose something were to go wrong with that tomorrow, you know? What about all of the assignments that you have, all the notes that you have? More than likely, it's probably on that, you know, electronic device. And if anything were to go wrong with it, you might probably be in a really, really bad position. So I urge you to visit this website and have a look at, you know, the 3 different areas that mentioned here with respect to hardware safety. You know, things like investing in a surge protector or a UPS to help, you know, if you have power fluctuations at home. And, you know, back up your content. And I'm actually going to speak to you guys about, you know, proper ways to back up your content so that, you know, you're not going to end up in, you know, any sort of problems. So we would have spoken, you know, a little bit about, you know, social safety, but I want to just draw reference to one thing. If you, for whatever reason, do not have an antivirus or anti-malware software, I would definitely recommend that you jump on the bandwagon and get something installed, because those software would prevent, you know, certain things from your computer from being controlled by someone else. And one thing in particular that I want you to be very aware of is your webcam. So your webcam, generally located on the top of your screen, would often show you a light, whether it's a green light or a red light, when it is in use. So if you are, for example, on Microsoft Word, or, you know, just typing up some document in Excel, and you know that your webcam really does not need to be on, but you are seeing that light there, it means that, hey, it could very well mean that someone is looking in on you without your knowledge. And that is as a result of a spyware or malware that might be installed on your computer. I have read that some spyware and malware are so sophisticated, depending on the type of laptop and operating system that you're using, that it can turn the webcam on without even putting on the light next to it. So in a case like that, some people go very old school and they just have like a piece of masking tape, you know, to cover the actual webcam. Some of the new laptops that I have seen students purchase actually come with a physical close device on the webcam that you can actually turn it off with a physical piece of plastic. So you actually slide this over it and, you know, it's blocked. So that's something that you want to be aware of, because I've actually seen cases where students show me videos of them in their room and they know that they didn't record it, right? So we have to be extremely aware as to what we are doing here. So ensure that you visit the site, understand all of the things that you need to do to keep your hardware up and running. Now, I pull out a few points here, and I'm just going to, you know, speak about these as we go along. First one and foremost, now that you are online more than ever, it's no better time to ensure that you have your security controls in top order. And, you know, your password is one of the fastest and easiest things to do in order for you to ensure that, you know, you have a really, really good starting point to protecting yourself on the internet. So if you want to look at this here, now there's another website address, cybersafety.com/passwords. And on that, I actually have a tool that can check to see how fast your password would be hacked. So of course, you don't have to put in your actual password, but if your password is something similar to what we have here, which is like your first name and maybe your date of birth, right? You could just type that in. So before this password of Darren 1978, if you actually plug that in into the password checker, it would tell you that it'll take 42 minutes for somebody to hack that. So, you know, we could actually improve on that and, you know, maybe use some uppercase and special characters. So we've converted Darren 1978 to capital DAR3N. So, you know, often you might use a 3 to represent an E and an exclamation mark to represent a 1. And as you can see here, I mean, there are so many different permutations. And when you actually put that in, you realize that it takes, 4 weeks to hack that particular password. Still, not that great a time, but it's definitely not something that will happen overnight per se. Now, I know you're looking at this password here and thinking to yourself, well, how am I going to remember this one, especially since I need to use different passwords for so many different applications? Well, I want you to consider, if you think that this is a difficult thing to do, I want you to consider using a passphrase. Now, nobody ever says that your password cannot be a passphrase. A passphrase is, as it says here, it's just a phrase that you are familiar with. So I like peanut butter, so my passphrase would be I love peanut butter. Just imagine if that's your password. I want to give you the task of going to cybersafety.com/passwords and typing in I love peanut butter and see how long it would take for that to be hacked. You'll be surprised. Something as simple as that, which is simple to you, but it's almost impossible for a piece of software to hack. And if you want to make it even more difficult, you can just use a few numbers and characters in that passphrase. So definitely something that you want to set up and maybe start using going forward. Because believe you me, your passwords is going to be that gatekeeper to your online identity. Now, in setting up accounts and setting up your passwords, you will also want to ensure that you have good password recovery, particularly to get back, your emails or access to your different sites. So it's always really good to have password recovery via a secondary email. But I think the better one would be via your phone. So some of you might be aware of something called multi-factor, two-factor authentication, and I'll speak to you about that in a little bit, because you would want to ensure that you can recover your password in the event anything goes wrong. Now you sit down there thinking to yourself, how am I going to remember passwords like this and like this if I have 5 or 6 or 50 different websites that I need to remember passwords for? Because we all know that we shouldn't use the same passwords on multiple websites, right? And let me just get into that a little bit. Yes, you can probably use the same password on sites that don't have critical information about you, but definitely your email should be a separate and distinct password. Access to your online classrooms should be a separate and distinct password. And if possible, and you can have different passwords for all your applications, fantastic. And I want to introduce you today to something called password management tools. There are lots of free ones. I use LastPass, and it's a really, really fantastic tool. And when you get to understanding what these do, they enter the password for you on the website. All you have to do is, tell it to create this secure password, and this application will enter the password for you. You can read up a little bit more about password management tools, but it's something I definitely think that you should start to employ going forward, because as I said, your passwords are extremely important in protecting your online online applications and services. So another thing that I want to refer to today is multi-factor, two-factor authentication. So we just spoke about passwords. So traditionally, to gain access to your email or to your online classroom or to social media, all you would have had to do was enter a username and password. But if that username and password is not that difficult to figure out, then a hacker or even your best friend could figure out, access to your system. However, with multi-factor authentication, you would then be telling those sites, the email sites or the software sites, to send you a text with a code to enter before you enter the website. And that's the second factor. And it's something that I would definitely encourage you to engage in, because, and the reason why we are focusing a little bit more on, safety online and password management is that I have seen that when someone gains access to your online profiles, whether it be your social media profiles or your email, that can also tarnish your digital footprint. They can also utilize your profiles to engage or conduct a cyberbullying event. And it would look as if it's coming from you, when in truth and in fact, it is not. So you have to be very cautious, and you would want to put a little extra attention to securing your online presence, just so that someone does not interact with you in a negative way on the internet. So you'd want to set up two-factor authentication. I know many of the social media applications have that. I know almost every single email tool has that as well. So definitely have a look at multi-factor, two-factor authentication as something to assist in securing your online profile. Now, the next point that I want to refer to you today is also extremely important, and that's backup strategy. Because as you get older, you would realize that you put so much information on these electronic devices, and you genuinely cannot afford to lose them, at any one point in time. So when you're thinking about backup, you should think about a 3-2-1 backup strategy, which is essentially 3 copies of the data, 2 that you would have on different physical medium, and 1 that you would have offsite, or as they say, in the cloud. So just to give you an idea, let's just say that we're working on a Microsoft Word document. Your primary copy would be the first copy. Then you would also want to have a backup of that on different storage. So for example, an external hard drive or a USB key, for example. And then, you would also want to have a copy of that final version on the cloud. So the cloud would be something like Google Drive or OneDrive, or even your Google Classroom, right? So there are also tools like Dropbox and quite a few bit more, which also fall under that category of the cloud. So now you have so many different versions or copies of that document. If in the event that, your laptop goes bad, you could always take that USB key and plug it into someone else's laptop and continue working on the document. If for whatever reason, you don't have access to the laptop and or that USB key, then all you need to do is log on to the cloud, log on to your Google Drive, log on to, your Google Classroom, and you will have access to that document there. So you will not be hindered by, losing that piece of work that you would have conducted, because of hardware failure. And it's something that, I think that you should set up almost immediately. Install Google Drive. It's free, and it will automatically back up, the folders that you tell it to into the cloud. And invest in, a nice little USB key. They're quite cheap for the, a lot of memory storage now. But again, a USB key is so small, it tends to get lost. So the image that I have on the picture here is actually an external hard drive, which is a bit bigger. And you can actually store a lot more on that device itself. So it might be something that you might want to consider, purchasing and using as you go forward. So one of the last things that I want to refer to you today is something called phishing. And no, it's not what we think about in terms of going on a boat, but it's phishing with respect to receiving email type scams that may encourage us to do certain things, such as changing our password. So many times hackers utilize this form of a hack in the sense of sending a password, an email, that might make you think that you did something wrong, or that your password is about to expire, or you're going to run out of space, or something that makes you think that, hey, did I do something wrong, or is something going to happen to my account? And then it'll say, hey, don't worry, we'll solve it for you. All you need to do is to change your password or update your password. And because some of these phishing attacks have become so sophisticated, the email that you receive might seem quite legitimate. and you will probably proceed to go ahead and change that password, only to realize that, okay, it says fine, your password has been changed, but nothing really and truly happened in the back end. Instead, you would have just given your password to the hacker, who now has access to your actual password. So here is an example, in case you're wondering what this is about. Sometimes, for example, a big company will send you an email saying that something might be wrong with your account, but what they will tell you is to visit the website and log in to check your account. What they will not tell you, to click on a link here, for example. So I'm going to point out to you some telltale signs of why this is a bad email. So the first thing here is, let me see, are you seeing? No, let me try this here. Pen. Right. So this here, it says, dear customer. Amazon is a multi-billion-dollar company. If they are sending me an email, believe you me, they know my name. They will not say their customer. They will say dear Darren. So that's definitely one giveaway. Another giveaway is when you actually hover over this link, which looks real, because this is www.amazon.com. That's the real address. But when you take your mouse and hover over it, this is the address that it's actually sending you to. Something that is not Amazon.com related. So that's definitely something to be aware of. But the biggest giveaway in this email, and it's something that a lot of people don't pay attention to, is right to the top here. The email address says that it's coming from Amazon, but if you actually look at the address, it's accounts@mazon.com. So this makes you think that it is Amazon.com, but it is actually not, right? So definitely this is a telltale sign that this is a fake email. Yes, they use the Amazon logo and everything looks pretty good. And upon clicking this link, it'll take you to a website that looks exactly like Amazon. And unfortunately, you may go in and type in your password and click change, and nothing really happens to your account. Here's another example. This one actually came in as an attachment in an email. So the attachment in the email would have said something from Microsoft, and it said, hey, I need you to actually change your password. But again, look at what's going on here. It's sending you to this website, agileones.com, which is definitely nothing to do with Microsoft. But this whole page here looks just like a Microsoft page. So you would, none the wiser, enter your password here, click sign in, and that actually sent your information to agileones.com. And then the last one here would be one from Netflix. It seems to have come from Netflix, where it's saying that we're having some trouble with your account. Update your account now, and that button there is the one that's going to be the trick, where when you click on it, it'll go to something that actually looks like a Netflix site, and same thing, it's going to ask you for that password. Now, even if the hacker gets access to your password and you have set up multi-factor authentication, then they will not be able to gain access to your account. And that's why we went through the process of setting up that multi-factor feature, because even if you do have a very complex password, if you give it to someone mistakenly by a phishing attack, you're still protected with your multi-factor setup. So we did speak about quite a lot of very technical things this morning, and I know it may be a bit much. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to either put them in on the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask them on the Zoom. call, but I would just like to say thank you very much to everyone who sat in on the call this evening. You have been yet again another fantastic audience. So I urge you at this point to give yourself a round of applause for sitting in and listening on the conversation. I am going to open up the floor. I'm going to leave this slide up for a little bit so that you can take down information. I am looking forward to some very engaging questions, because I know yesterday the younger students, they did have quite a lot of questions to ask. So I'm hoping you guys can do the same. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
On behalf of the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother, the principal, staff, and students of the St. Rose Modern Secondary School, I would like to thank the staff at the Franciscan Institute, Ms. Ramsuhai and Mr. Dore, for recognizing the need to facilitate such a timely activity. Mr. Dore, your session was very informative and meaningful. You delivered your message of online safety, social media etiquette, and cyberbullying with great drive and passion. Mr. Dore, I assure you that the students listened well and learned quite a lot from this session. I can assure you that they will practice what you recommended. They will invest time online and not spend too much time online. They will be positive online users and not cyberbullies. They will be respectful, tolerant, and caring online users and not disrespectful, rude users. They will understand that whatever is posted online stays online. They will understand that cyberbullying can result in imprisonment. They will be aware of online scams and other sophisticated methods used by hackers to gain their information. Once again, on behalf of all of us here at St. Rose, thank you and all the best in your future endeavors.